wrestle with, being veterans. And I think, one of the reasons that veterans obviously should be obvious are known to be more patriotic is simply for me, simply because I was patriotic going in before I went in the Marine Corps, kind of, sort of, Reagan inspired me. But once you're in the service, and especially during a time of war, which the last 20 plus years and war and terror has been a time of war, not declared war, but conflict. If you're in any level of service, you join not knowing where you're going to end up, what job you're going to do, but you watching on CNN and Fox News all this carnage happening and mayhem and the U.S. soldiers getting shot at and killed and blown up, and you may put your life in the line. And so I think it causes a lot of veterans to think, what am I putting my life in the line for? Why am I doing this? Why would I care to do this? Well, it's for my country. Okay. Well, why do I care about my country? Is it just because my family lives here? That's, I'm sure, a part of it. It should be a part of it. But it's something about what America stands for. And a lot of us, I think you're typical teenager, typical, not all of them, but, including myself, don't really think I'll put a lot of thought into, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, all these things. But again, once you get in the service, that becomes a higher priority topic because that's what we're defending. In fact, we swear an oath to support and defend, potentially with our lives, the Constitution of the United States. So we study the Constitution here and there while we're in the service, sometimes formally in groups of other Marines. Sometimes I remember several over my 25-year career, a handful of times, some staff and CO would just bring the Marines together and teach them something about the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. And there's a reason for that, because that's we swear an oath to support and defend it. And for me, during the 2020 time frame, and so partly because of that, and because of it being inspired by Reagan, I've been a big fan of the founding fathers. And remember, Marcus, about in the 90s, late 90s, there was a slew of books that were coming out, very patriotic books, like Founding Brothers, 1776, and they're very popular books, and they're talking about the founding generation and their founding fathers and the founding values, and there was no controversy. It was great. Americans loved the books. They're well written. You could sling off a whole bunch of them, I'm sure you've read. And then something happened in 2020 with a combination of the tragic death of George Floyd, and COVID, and just the combination of just what became kind of a dystopian period in recent American history that really threw a lot of turmoil into what America is. And you and I were in the Pentagon at that time, and I was in the Pentagon for 2 years. The first year was under the first Trump administration. Second year was under the Biden administration, and there was a clear difference in tone and leadership style from the commander in chief on down. It made the two kind of philosophies starkly evident and different. Whereas I would argue, probably, back in, from George H.W. Bush to Clinton, there probably wasn't that big of a feeling of a difference in the Pentagon at the time. But this was a stark difference, and it illustrated a stark difference in philosophies of what America is. So it caused me to really wrestle with, okay, I've just kind of, been a big fan of the Constitution, founding values, et cetera, but hasn't ever really been challenged before. And now it's kind of being challenged. So I really dug down into what I believed and why I believed it. And first and foremost, I'm a Christian. And I know that, a lot of the founders were Christians, not all of them, but a huge majority. And you hear this term deist thrown around, and that's kind of in a lot of cases, that's misapplied term. A lot of them were overt Christians, but they just had different ways of defining these terms back then. Either way, faith was a big part of a lot of the founders, and what infused their beliefs led to the Constitution. But to me, the Declaration of Independence is the bed from which the Constitution sprung forth.